We are live. What is up, everyone? How's everyone doing out there, man? Super late night sports talk, man. Just wanted to give my thoughts on these basketball games that we just saw today. And, man, what an incredible game we saw from San Diego State, man. So, I came on here a little bit earlier today, man, and I gave some picks, and, man, we went 1-1. We went against we went against UConn, man, thinking that we were going to outsmart the NCAA. But let's get into that UConn basketball game in a little bit, man. Let's talk about San Diego State, man. That huge shot. This is a very back and forth basketball game, as we saw. We talked about in the previous videos that a lot of these basketball games, man, they just get settled that last couple of possessions, man. These games just get like that clutch shot, clutch possessions, which we saw again this basketball game. Something that I also saw in this basketball game, man, was the referees. I saw the referees kind of like favoring one side, maybe the first half, and then favoring another side in the second half. And I kind of wish they had called kind of like an even basketball game, man. But, we saw a lot of controversial calls in this one, man. This was a great game to watch. Obviously we had San Diego State, so it was great for us. But if you're a Florida Atlantic fan, it does suck, because I do recognize that the referees are kind of, a little bit one-sided on, like I mentioned, man. First half, second half, they gave State a bunch of chances down the line. But both teams, man, they both had chances to win at the end, all right? We can talk about the refs and stuff like that, but both teams had chances to win at the end. Just State buried that huge clutch shot, man. The guy let go of the basketball with like 0.6 of a second left. And, man, San Diego State is going to their first ever championship game, man, in school history. First time in Elite Eight, first time in the Final Four, first time in the championship game, man. But San Diego State, San Diego State's going to face probably the best basketball team in college basketball since Kansas, man. I came on here a little bit earlier, and I kind of, didn't take into consideration about the way this basketball team has been playing the last 4 or 5 basketball games. I think they got 5-game win streak, right? They lost to Marquette in the conference championship game. The thing about this UConn ball club, man, is I don't know why they didn't play like this in the beginning of the year in their conference. They got beat up a little bit. A lot of bad losses as well for UConn. But, that was months ago, man. And right now, this team is clicking. If the championship game was like Kansas from last year and then UConn from this year, it would be a good basketball game, because, man, I don't think this is going to be a close one, gentlemen. I think UConn's going to win by at least 8 or 10 points in this basketball game. Maybe I'll be wrong, and maybe San Diego State makes it a ball game and they like lose by like 5. But UConn's going to win the championship. Not much to say. So that concludes pretty much the college basketball talk for this year, man. I kind of wish we finished a little bit stronger with these picks, man. Like I mentioned, we went 5-3 in the 6 weeks team, 3-1 in the Final Four. 3-1 in the Elite Eight, 1-1 in the Final Four, though, man. I wish I would have hit that both games for you guys, but it is what it is, man. So the championship game's on Monday. It's probably going to be a hopefully not, man. Hopefully a State makes it a good basketball game and they don't get embarrassed like all these other teams have been getting embarrassed by UConn. The thing about that basketball team is like UConn, I mentioned that if they kind of like struggle from 3, it could get interesting against Miami, but, man, this team don't struggle. UConn turned the ball over so much in this basketball game, and it didn't even matter because Miami, they never were able to find a way to attack UConn in this basketball game. They were never able to figure out the whole game, the adjustments and the coaching stuff. And it could maybe not be the adjustments and the coaching stuff. It could just be this UConn ball club, man. They are clicking. They have a lot of talent in terms of rotating on switches. Very difficult to penetrate them at the rim because they have really very good rim defenders. Yeah, they're very difficult to score on this UConn ball club. And then when UConn goes on offense, man, ball rotation is elite on that team. They almost forced the team to make a mistake once that mistake is there, they're all like super smart to finding the open player and getting a great shot to and they nail them, man. They nail those shots. Props to UConn, man, to the coaching staff, to the recruiting. This team reminds me a lot of Kansas last year when Kansas won the championship in terms of depth, in terms of size, in terms of just playing as a team and the game planning as well. It just goes to show how important these coaches are in college basketball. That's why we've seen these programs and these coaches win multiple championships, man, because of that reason. These programs like UConn, Kansas, Villanova, when they had that great coach, it just goes to show, man, UConn is their, 99, they've won 4 championships. They're 4-0 in championship games as a franchise, as a program with different coaches. I mean, it is what it is, man. So props to them. Props to them on possibly winning the championship. And that concludes college basketball, man. That concludes the college basketball season, man. Next up is going to be the NBA. We have the season coming to a close next Sunday. A lot of storylines going on right now. A lot of injuries as well, with Jokic going down with that calf injury. It's going to shake up the Western Conference, man. We're going to see if one of these two players is able to get their team out of the West. It's going to be interesting, man. These standings in the Western Conference are super tight, super close. In the East, I kind of think it's kind of settled. The top teams in terms of like the play-in shit, but the Western Conference still has that play-in tournament little thing going. And a lot of those teams are super close in the standings. So this last week of basketball, it's going to be really interesting to watch. The injuries as well, man. I want to see how these teams finish health-wise. Like I mentioned, Jokic went down with the calf injury. All of a sudden, man, Denver was having a great year. They struggled of late, man. They've been losing a lot of basketball games because their defense is pretty bad on Denver. But let's check out some of these standings right here. Let's talk about the Western Conference first, man. This is the conference I think is the most interesting because all these pieces could be moving these last couple of games, man. I mean, a lot of these teams are going to try to knock off the Clippers with that, barely holding on to that 6th seed, right? They would face, I think, Sacramento in that first round if that holds up. A lot of these teams will probably want to face Sacramento, man, because, Memphis is going to be a pretty tough out. They've showed that they've been able to hold their ground without their center, with all that controversy to Ja Morant. We made a video kind of thinking that Memphis was going to fall off, but man, they have done anything but fall off. They're pretty much trying to even get that 1 seed in the Western Conference, especially with these injuries to Denver, man. Denver is in a lot of trouble because the injury to Jokic, like I'm talking about, and it opens up the door for a lot of these possibilities in the Western Conference. Is Memphis going to go to their first ever NBA Finals, man? We'll see, right? The Phoenix, obviously, with the talent, with the starting lineup, is pretty solid. Their bench depth, though, is pretty weak. And obviously, you have Golden State lurking in there with no Andrew Wiggins. They will be at a handicap compared to from last year. The Clippers, since they've gotten Westbrook, I don't know, man. That player really limits what you can do on offense in terms of ball rotation because he holds onto the ball way too long. I don't know, man. That addition to Westbrook, it has not paid off for the Clippers. It might cost them come down to the playoffs. And I know the Warriors, man, they would face the Phoenix Suns in that first round if ended today. But, would you lose basketball games on purpose to get that coveted 6th slot and face the Kings in that very first round? A lot of interesting moving pieces coming down in the NBA. It's holding my interest big time. I'm going to get into the NBA playoffs and make a prediction and videos and all that stuff in the coming days. Trying to pick the NBA winner, man. But right now in the Western Conference, it's kind of a huge puzzle. Hopefully it starts to clear up as the season ends come on Sunday. And going really quickly here to this Eastern Conference, I think this is kind of an easier conference to pick. I just think there's three teams that could do it. Obviously Milwaukee, Boston, Philly with that outside shot, possibly to do it. Thing about that Eastern Conference, man, is like the team that gets that one seed is going to have like the driver's seat to go all the way to the NBA Finals, because you don't want to face Philly in that Eastern Conference semifinals, man. In the second round, it would be Boston, Philly right now, right? And Milwaukee would have a much easier road against Cleveland, who's kind of struggled a little bit of late. I know New York's coming on strong. That's going to be an interesting series. And we just had Boston, man, beat down Milwaukee a couple nights ago. I think one of their players on Milwaukee was out, right? So Boston, Milwaukee, Boston. The one seed, I think, is going to go to the finals. And say, for example, if Boston doesn't do it, man, if Boston even faces Philly in that second round, they'll beat Philly, man. I don't think Philly will have enough to knock them out like that. Harden is kind of fallen off a little bit of late. But Boston is coming on strong with Jaylen Brown. All right, I'm not a big Jason Tatum fan at all, but I am a big Jaylen Brown fan. That guy he's a beast, man. That guy is a true winner. Tatum is soft. And I think if Boston was to do something this year, it's going to be because of Jaylen Brown, man. They got to trust that guy more to run the offense and not so much clog the ball rotation up with Jason Tatum. It's going to be one of those two teams, man. Milwaukee or Boston, the one seed is going to be the driver's seat, like I mentioned, the East. A little bit easier to pick that one, man. And if you ask me right now of these basketball teams right here, who do I like for a possible NBA Finals, man? I mean, it could be Kevin Durant with the Suns, just based on how weak the West is right now, man, with that injury to Jokic. All right. The Lakers, man, the freaking Lakers, right? They're a very entertaining team to watch, honestly, because of the young core they have now, especially with the point guard, man. I think that guy, he's a great fit for that ball club with the shooting guard they have. I think those two players, they play well together, man. They've been playing a couple of games, man, but they've found a good like little rotation. The coach, though, is pretty bad on the Lakers, man. And obviously, the obvious AD can go down in any basketball game, man. They will be a dangerous team in the playoffs. All right, could they do it, man? Could they run the table and knock off all these basketball teams? Right, they would face Denver in that very first game if the playoffs ended today, and if they won the play-in. All right, if the Lakers were to lose in the playoffs, I think it would be in the play-in. I think if the Lakers would make that NBA. If they would make the playoffs, man, I kind of think they have a great shot to do something this year because of the young core that they have, man. They're fast, they're athletic, man. They shoot well all of a sudden. They have a little bit of depth on their team. This Lakers ball club, I do like the pieces they have. And because of how weak the Western Conference is, man, that's basically what it comes down to. The injury to Jokic all of a sudden evens the playing field big time, man. The Kings are third place in the Western freaking conference, man. That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's how weak it is this year. The Clippers fell off completely this year. Kawhi, the injury has slowed them down a little bit this year. They try to get Westbrook for like a spurt, but it has not worked out for them. They try to get the point guard from Denver that has not worked out for him, Bones. And obviously Golden State, man. We talked about them last time with Wiggins. He might not play this year, all that stuff. So it's a down year in the West, man. The Mavericks are all the way in the 11th seed, man. That's how weak this Western Conference is. These teams try to add pieces at the trade deadline, and it just did not work out for them, man. That Dallas Mavericks ball club completely imploded with Kyrie, with Luka. The mentals on Luka are good when like he's the player. When Luka's the man, he plays at a huge high level. But when Luka is like a little brat, man, like the team falls all. You got two brats on that ball club, man. You have Kyrie and Luka who can go. They can quit on you easily. The coach is pretty bad as well, man. that Dallas team, who knows what's going to happen to them in the future? Is Luka going to even resign with that basketball team, man? We'll find out. So probably make a couple more videos coming up pretty soon with the NBA talk. After these standings settle down, maybe like next Sunday, I'll come on here once the season ends, and I'll see how these teams finish. That's pretty much the video, man. Just wanted to give my thoughts on these sports. And baseball, just the last a little side note here with the baseball talk, man. With the opening day, I was pretty excited, honestly, that baseball is back. I'm a big MLB mark. I've had good success in baseball in past years. I think one year we picked the champion before the year even began. That was a really good year. Obviously, man, this year I do like some baseball teams to do something. And my thoughts on this league right now, how I see some of these teams kind of like flowing and things are going to be going. I think the pitching this year is going to be huge, as it is always. But my point is the pitching is kind of down a little bit. And I want to talk about the National League first, man. I think the Dodgers have probably one of the best teams in the National League, but they have a bunch of question marks on their pitching staff, right? Question marks, like no more Walker Buehler, right? I mean, is Kershaw going to hold up the whole year? He had a great performance today, but, it's a long freaking season, man. Is Urias going to, he's probably going to be a Cy Young candidate, that guy, Julio Urias. And I'm looking at veteran pitchers, man. I'm looking at teams that have question marks. A lot of these teams have question marks, right? But I'm looking at a veteran type of pitcher that can like will his team throughout the whole year. The Cardinals come to mind with their veteran pitcher Wainwright. They have a bunch of question marks as well on that pitching staff, man. And Dakota Hudson's beginning of the year in the minor leagues. Flaherty had a decent performance today. Walked a bunch of hitters and shit, right? But my point of going back to the pitching staff in the National League, there's no dominant team, man. People want to talk about the Mets and all this shit, but the Mets have old pitchers that are expected to have great years, and the closer's done already. Who knows the motivation on the Mets, man, if they're just a bunch of mercenaries trying to get that one final paycheck before they retire, or they really trying to win these baseball games. Verlander's already on the injured list, man, to begin the year, all right? So that could be interesting, or it just could be like precaution, like it's a long year and they're going to save him for to throw 200 innings. It's going to be... National League is a toss-up, Like I mentioned, I think teams that have that one veteran pitcher and have like a young core filled with question marks, and it might not even be a dominant pitching team that wins the National League this year, man. It just may be that one team that kind of pulls it all together with like veteran hitters, the culture, the franchise, talking like the East, the Braves will probably be in it at the very end. They'll probably be like one of the top 4 teams in the National League. I think they will go into that second round into playoffs. The wild card, and they'll go the second round. Philly, I think they're probably going to fall off a little bit. In the National League West, I think it's going to be the Dodgers. The Padres, they got to a pretty shitty start already. Their quick pitching staff is a huge question mark, man. They had Michael Wacha throw today, man. They could use him as their third starter. Blake Snell, their opening day starter, because of the injury to Musgrove. And Yu Darvish, man, he threw in the World Baseball Classic. But the Padre pitching staff is not good. They have a bunch of hitters, man. They're going to score a bunch of runs, right? I want to see how these first months go in baseball. All right, and it's going to be a long year, man. Last year we saw in the National League 2 under 90 win baseball teams go all the way through to the National League Championship Series, man. They just got hot at the right time. So who knows, right, what happens, man. But there's a couple of teams that I like. One of these teams that I like a lot this year is the St. Louis Cardinals because of their culture, because of their franchise history. I think they have a solid manager's kind of decent. But their catcher, I know he got hurt, Contreras, right? But I think he will be like a maybe not like a huge plus on the defensive side because of Molina, but the hitting side, I think he will be a plus. But we'll see, man. In the American League, everyone's going to talk about the Yankees and the Astros, right? But those teams have a lot of pressure to do something again this year. All right, I would not be shocked if it was like some other team that came up in the American League this year. Teams like Toronto Blue Jays, man, who have a great lineup, pitching staff also has question marks, but we'll see, man. I'm gonna be checking out the MLB little by little, get into it. NBA's coming up next, man, so hopefully we can look into these into some of this basketball. Look at the final standings in basketball and see what happens. All right, and try to pick the winner, man. Try to pick the winner in the NBA. And if you're asking right now, teams that I'm liking in baseball, I got talked about in the National League: Dodgers, the Cardinals, the Braves. I think those are probably gonna be like your top three teams in the National League. The Padres, I think, are a little bit lower tier. I think one of those three teams will win, has a great chance to win the pennant this year, right? Cardinals, Dodgers, and the Braves. One of those three teams, man, I do expect them to win the pennant. And then in the American League side, man, teams that could win the pennant, I mean, just going to be Houston, I guess. Houston, the Yankees, but they'll choke, man. They'll choke in the playoffs. Aaron Boone, he's going to run that rotation and the pitching staff into the ground. I don't think they'll do it, Cleveland could shock someone. Toronto, I think, has one of the best lineups in not just in the American League, but in baseball. They added Brandon Belt, man. That guy's going to be a very positive influence in terms of carrying that team in terms of championship possibility, right? American League pennant possibility, because they have a super young core. George Springer, we'll see. We'll see. Obviously, the pitching staff, a lot of question marks as well, right? But a lot of teams have question marks. I don't see a dominant pitching staff in baseball, except the Astros. I think the Astros have the most dominant pitching staff. A lot of young, tough arms on that team. No more Verlanders, so who knows if that even's even going to even matter. Most of those dudes don't even speak English. But I think the Astros are like the best staffed pitching staff to do something again this year. But besides them, man, I don't see a top pitching staff in baseball this year. All right, that the Dodgers have a bunch of question marks. All right, huge, big time question marks on that Dodger ball club. That's why I think it's wide open this year, gentlemen. I think the pennant is open. We might see some shocking teams in the World Series. Team like maybe Toronto, right? Team that hasn't made the World Series since the 90s. I think they have a great shot to make the World Series this year, just because of what I'm talking about. It could be a down year. But we'll see. We shall see, man. So just wanted to get my thoughts, man, on the sports world. Give my thoughts on the college basketball games that we saw today and all that good stuff, man. But I'll probably be coming back here maybe next Sunday. I'll make a video about the NBA and all that good stuff, man. But I hope you guys have a great week. Hope you guys enjoy the sports. And yeah, talk to you guys later, man. Peace.